Um, It's 1 o'clock, and I'll now call the meeting of the Douglas County Planning Commission to order. It's November 10th, 2020. And for determination of a quorum, I'll call the roll. If you could answer your name when I call your name. Christy.
Present.
Bryce.
Present.
Dave.
Present.
Mark.
Present.
Brian.
Present.
Maureen.
Present.
So we have all 7 members of the Planning Commission. We have a quorum. And Dave, if I could ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Dave. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. We appreciate your service. We appreciate the service of all the other veterans. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to public comment. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Planning Commission. Public comment cards and comments left on the county's website prior to the meeting have been compiled and made a part of the supporting materials that have been provided to the Planning Commission and public for review. Only 2 periods of public comment will be taken during this meeting, once at the beginning of the meeting and again at the end of the meeting. Public comment will not be taken on each agenda item. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person who has left a voice message on Douglas County's public comment phone line, 775-783-6088, once a public comment period has been opened. Once public comment closes, the voice messages will be played to the public and Planning Commission in the order they were recorded. No more than 1 voice message public comment per person will be played during each public comment period. Douglas County's public comment phone line became available to take public comment at 12 o'clock noon. Public comment will remain open for at least 5 minutes to allow members of the public to call or until the last caller has finished leaving a voice message on the county's public comment phone line. The Planning Commission wants to encourage the respectful consideration of all views by members of the public. If the content of any voicemail is willfully disruptive of the meeting by being irrelevant, repetitious, slanderous, offensive, inflammatory, irrational, or amounts to a personal attack or interfering with the rights of others, the voice message will be skipped to the next public comment. The time is now 1:03, and Maureen, if you have, Colleen, if you have public comment, you can go ahead and begin.
I do. So far we have 2.
Okay.
Start with 1.
Hello, this is Brian Fitzgerald, BrianFitzgerald. I am president of the Carson Valley Arts Council. During today's meeting, you will be reviewing language for Element 3, Economic Development. Staff will be presenting text items that may not have been presented at prior meetings. Included in the presentation will be a new subsection titled Public Art and Culture. I first want to thank the staff of Community Development and the County Manager's Office for including new language for the arts in the proposed Master Plan text update. I encourage the Planning Commission to accept this first step in supporting the arts. It is critical that Douglas County take a more active role in leading the support for building arts and culture facilities, creating art districts and studio spaces, developing public art protocol, and especially promoting public funding and partnerships for the arts. So with that in mind, please consider strengthening the language in this new section. I believe that arts and culture deserve their own chapter in the Douglas County Master Plan. What is being presented for your consideration is the addition of an arts subsection as part of the economic development goals. Okay, I suppose the addition of anything related to arts is a step in the right direction. And arts and culture have a direct tie to our economic development, and it is a natural fit to be a part of downtown revitalization efforts. So please review what I have submitted as suggested additional language as part of my written public comment. It is included in your supplemental material. The text should go beyond support for public art. Douglas County needs to support the development of arts facilities and art district and the necessary partnerships between the county and local cultural groups and organizations. You, as the Planning Commission, impact of the arts and legitimize the arts as an essential component of this community's future plans. You have an opportunity today and with your scheduled meeting of November 17th to do right by the arts. Let's get the text update correct today. As a follow-up on November 17th, I suggest some additional goals, policies, and action items will need further discussion to complete the process. Thank you.
Public comment number 2.
Jim Slade. On urban service areas, there is a substantial amount of development already approved within urban service areas USAs. Given the county's priority to do infill development first, there is no need to identify additional USAs, especially since the USAs were expanded greatly in the Minden-Gardnerville area last year to accommodate the controversial Park Ranch development. From our current master plan, these sentences have been removed. Outside of USAs, higher density residential development is discouraged. USAs help to maintain urban edges, foster compact urban form, and preserve rural character. Why were they removed? The section should read as it did in 1996. All areas not urban are considered rural because there's adequate capacity within the defined urban service areas to accommodate almost all of the residential growth that can occur within the limit of the groundwater resource and capital improvement capabilities of the county. There is no need to identify future urban service areas. The residential build-out analysis is incomplete and misleading. Why does it not consider receiving areas, which have the greatest potential for more dwelling units and population growth, would have a profound effect on Douglas County's fiscal and natural resources, including water? In Table G3, the vacant receiving area is shown to be 3,705 acres. Since those can be built up to a density of 16 dwelling units per acre, that could mean more than 59,000 additional dwelling units, which could add over 140,000 people. Even if those receiving areas are not all built to that density, and they rarely are, that could lead to a massive increase in population, far more than our aquifer could serve. The recent Park Ranch Holdings agreement that allows up to 2,500 homes would add about 6,000 new people. None of that is counted since it's not yet in an approved development. Can our roads, schools, and infrastructure handle that? On estimated potential growth, page 98, from my comments above, it's clear that the estimated potential growth is grossly underestimated, which appears to be on purpose. Obviously, with the Park Ranch's 2,500 homes and the other currently undeveloped receiving areas, the potential growth is far higher. It is likely to be higher than our available water will be able to serve, that our roads will be able to accommodate, that our infrastructure can support, and that our fiscal ability can sustain without further tax increases. It would also be ruinous to the rural character, open space, and quality of life that so many of our residents expect and enjoy. Community development has presented you with an unrealistic picture of our growth potential and should be rejected. Additionally, there's never been a build-out analysis in any previous master plan, partly because it is such a moving target. This one should be removed.
Public comment number 3.
Ellie Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R. Growth management element, which should be removed from the housing linkage. Separate elements should be required. Quote, growth management involves balancing protection of the natural environment with new urban and suburban development using different tools such as annual building permit caps and or urban growth boundaries. New urban and suburban terminology does not represent any rural characteristic. Quote again, there is often concern that growth management strategies may be too restrictive and cause increases in housing prices and or raw land prices. On the other hand, an overly rapid increase in population and excessive urbanization are not part of the vision for a county which seeks to remain mostly rural in nature and prizes its lower density status and abundant open spaces. There is no real or perceived restriction that I can ascertain, as there are several thousand units on the books yet to be built, referenced in Table G5, and many, frankly, have been on the books far too many years with no review process to determine why. Please explain what would cause housing prices to increase as related to growth management initiative. And as stated, excessive urbanization are not part of the vision or a county which seeks to remain mostly rural in nature and prizes the lower density status. The goals and policies seemed to be conflicting. The Douglas County Master Plan and Douglas County Development Code provide the guidance and regulations regarding the appropriate types and location of different types of development. Appropriate types and location is defined by whom? The continued conversion of A19 to smaller subdivision type development in certain locations and larger should not be considered, but is approved anyway. The broken record narrative for me continues on community plans updated need to be a priority before community character is lost to conversions and outdated plans that are allowed to be used for approval with future land use maps. Thank you.
Currently, that was the last one.
Okay, Colleen, thank you. I have now, the time is 1:12, so we've gone beyond the 5 minutes allotted to allow people to call in. And if there's nothing else, then as of 1:12, opening public comment is closed. The county's public comment phone line will remain open to allow for closing public comment to be recorded as the meeting progresses. We'll now move to approval of the agenda. The agenda contains the item listed under public hearings, number 1 for possible action. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Maureen moves approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
Brian, second.
Brian seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the roll. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So on this vote, there's 7 ayes, no nays, and the agenda is approved. We'll go on to approval of the minutes. This is for possible action. Approval of the draft minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting on October 13th, 2010. I submitted some minor corrections to those minutes. Is there any other comments on the minutes of the meeting of October 13th? Maureen?
Let Bryce go first.
Bryce?
That doesn't feel right, Maureen. I can't go before a lady.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have a quick one on page 21, Mr. Chair. Under Mr. Klutz speaks, it says, I too don't believe that finding B has been met, and it should say has not been met. Oh, I do not believe that finding B has been, never mind. Sorry, it's correct.
Okay, thank you. Maureen?
Okay, I sent in some minor corrections, but I do want to compliment Amy on the great job she did on the minutes. And if nobody else has any corrections, I'll move adoption of the minutes.
Maureen moves approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
So moved.
Bryce seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on approval of the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So the minutes are approved 7-0. We'll now move on to the agenda items. This is for possible action. Presentation and discussion on the final changes to the 2020 Douglas County Master Plan, which includes amending all existing chapters, creating a new structure of elements to include executive summary and county profile, land use and historic preservation, agriculture and conservation, growth management and housing, economic development, public facilities, services and recreation, public safety, and implementation. This meeting is to continue working on the elements of the master plan update presented during the special meetings held on October 20th and 21st and November 4th, 2020, as well as text items that have not been presented at prior meetings. The Planning Commission will review public comments submitted and will deliberate on the proposed changes to the 2020 master plan at this meeting and may either approve the final master plan update or carry over unfinished items to another special meeting on November 17th, 2020. So where we left off at our previous meeting was the unfinished elements, number 3, economic development, number 4, growth management and housing, and number 6, public safety. So our mission today is to consider the text and the tables in all of those items, to answer questions from the Planning Commission members, to propose modifications or direct staff for further information on each of those. So we'll continue with the same process that we had previously. Is we'll bring element 3 forward and have a motion to accept the language in element 3 for purposes of discussion and debate, and then we'll take these one by one. So if I could have a motion to accept the draft element number 3, economic development. Brian?
Motion to accept the economic development draft element for discussion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Christie seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on accepting the draft element for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Christie?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave? Dave, you might be muted now. Dave, this is on accepting the draft economic development element.
Agreed.
Thank you. Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this is 7 votes to 0. For purposes of discussion, we'll move on to the economic development element. So are there questions or thoughts that people need to have answered, or language that they would like to suggest to changing on the economic development element? Maureen, go ahead.
In reading Ellie Waller's comments on the purpose in economic development, she is absolutely correct that complement should be with an E and not an I, because it's used as a verb.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Ellie. I think we've talked a little bit about this before, but at the end of the review of the entire document, we will authorize staff to go ahead and correct misspellings and punctuation and formatting errors and other things that come up. But please continue to compile your list, and I appreciate everybody's diligence on looking towards a perfect document, although nothing will probably be perfect in our world. Other members of the Planning Commission that have questions or suggestions on the draft that's before us now? Mark.
Yes, on page 56 of the package, we have a graph there that shows trash revenues and expenses for trash. I didn't think Douglas County did any trash. I thought it was all handled by Douglas Disposal, and all we collected was a franchise fee.
Tom Delaire, are you the right person to give Mark an answer on that one?
Yeah, that I believe, Mark, that is what is reflected there is the franchise fee revenue associated with DDI.
So how do we have expenses equal to the franchise fee? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's a percentage of the gross. And then they get audited by an outside firm that verifies they paid the right amount. So how do we have expenses?
I'll have to find that answer out for you. I don't know about that particular fund, but
Okay.
but it's a good question for sure. We did get this chart from the finance department.
Okay.
Other questions on the economic development element? Maureen.
Yeah, this is just a quickie on page either 52 or 53. We cite a lot of economic data for 2020, and that data updates on a regular basis, are we going to have hyperlinks, at least on the web page, so people can see the current data as opposed to waiting until the next master plan update?
Maureen, each one of these charts, Tom Delaire for the record, each one of these is an annual report that gets created by the finance department on an annual basis after the audit is prepared. And so we won't be able to link to them, but we can point them to the website absolutely for the finance department.
Okay, thank you.
Where to go. I just don't think we could do an actual link.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Tom. Bryce, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Delaire, on page 56, it shows in the pie graph that 25% of the revenue comes from intergovernmental shared revenues. What are those?
I thought we had an explanation of that in the packet on the intergovernmental, but I'll have to look, Member Bryce, and see what that definition is. Again, we got this chart from Finance Department.
Bryce, if you would like the simple explanation, it's the revenue charged from one governmental function to the other governmental function. So, you know, if the cops are charged for something, that's the revenue from charging the cops within the other portions of the government. So basically just money going across governments.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was actually a different.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Maureen.
It's on page 55 at the top of the page.
There we go.
Does that cover what you were looking for, Bryce, or do you want staff to do a little more explanation in the text?
No, Mr. Chair, that's sufficient for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sam Taylor, did you have a point you wanted to add on?
Mr. Chair, thanks, Sam Taylor, on behalf of Douglas County DAs. I'm not sure, but I think the font on the top of page 56, where it starts with governmental activities increased, ... I think it's wrong size, different size.
Thank you. You got good eyes there, Sam. Mark, did I see your hand up for something else, or are you okay so far?
Yeah, no. Back to Bryce's question, I think intergovernmental revenues in this case are consolidated city and county relief taxes and some motor vehicle privilege tax and stuff like that. But I did have a question on page 61, and we are talking about preserving scenic vistas. And I didn't think that Nevada state law recognized scenic vistas. So this is a question for Sam Taylor.
What page was that again, Mark?
60.
Sam Booth has it up on the screen and he just highlighted it in blue. He's pretty quick. Again, Sam Taylor for the record. I don't think it's required to be laid out in state law that if you in the master plan wanted to preserve scenic vistas and establish trails, I mean, that's a goal that the commission could undertake on its own without regard to state law, I think.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add on, Mark, I'm not a realtor, but my realtors always tell you that for private property, there's no method of preserving a scenic vista. But I think as Sam Taylor was enunciating, that as a county, we can set that as a goal or an admirable quality for Douglas County. So that's probably why it's highlighted on here. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, thank you. That answers that. My final comment is on page 70, when we're talking about the utilities at the Minden Tahoe Airport on the east side. I think those have been installed for a year or two. So I guess this question is for Tom Delaire.
I believe the water, I don't think it's been accepted yet. The water and the sewer line and the lift station has been installed. I don't know if there has been power extended over there yet or not. Yeah, I'll have to verify that. I know they did. I know we have a Bliss Street expansion, and they revised the road and alignment over there on that side, and we're still working on trying to get that accepted.
Okay. Thank you. I'm satisfied.
Thank you, Mark. Brian, go ahead.
So back to Maureen's comment on, the financial data being up to date. On packet page 54, in the middle of that paragraph, we make reference to the comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR. I would just hyperlink that to the CAFR, because then that would get you to the current page of the current financials. I mean, just as a way to facilitate this just not going out of date. I know you said it might not be possible, but I think we have other links in here. I would think that was possible too. Tom, maybe?
Yeah, that one, I think they're actually working on the CAFR right now. So once it gets accepted, then we'll have a link. It'll be on the website at the finance department for sure.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we put a link to that website where they can get it, no matter what, when we upload the most recent one, they would just be right there. I'd say that'd probably be sufficient, I think, to get Maureen's point across.
And there was, they did an annual summary of that CAFR, which was where a lot of this information came from. So it's a really good document, is that summary. The CAFR is really difficult to read. I imagine you, of all people, could read it, but I'm not an accountant.
I'd say the summary just confuses people further, but the detail is really what I like. But yeah, if we put the link, then I can get the detail. I like that.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brian. Other members have questions, comments, or suggestions on economic development? I had just two areas that I wanted to call staff's attention to. The first one is on packet page 52 under the section Local Economy and Outlook 2020. The second paragraph in that section, to me, reads a little bit awkwardly and may not give the impression that we want to give, because it begins talking with residential permits, building permits, and then it discusses, it gives the documentation in fiscal year 2019, 2020, 1,441 permits were issued, a decrease of 16% from the prior year. Tom, I think what they're referring to with the 1,441 is not residential building permits, as in constructing a new home. It's a variety of construction permits that may be issued relating to residential housing, say addition of a garage or installation of a generator or a repair of damage that might have happened in a fire. Am I correct in that, Tom?
Yeah, that's correct, Kirk. We can swipe the residential, that first word right there before building permits, and we can either do building permit has issued permits or what kind of permits. I mean, if you guys want to expand that, absolutely, we can expand that language.
I'd be fine if we just want to take out the word residential. It's still, to me, just a tiny little bit misleading. I'm not sure if a leading indicator of economic activity is people installing generators or remodeling a garage or something. I would like maybe you to take a look at that language, and if we could come back with some modifications that we might review at the next meeting, that might be the way to do it, just so we have a clear picture, because we do talk in the housing section about actual building permits, and I think that's the appropriate place for this. And I don't want to be too picky on this, but I don't want people to get the wrong impression as far as what we're doing with housing.
Yeah, no, we understand. The 1440 was the permits issued, but it includes, like you said, roofing, water heaters, electrical connections, reservices, new services. It's everything. Over-the-counter permits, residential permits, commercial permits, everything. So,
thank you. Well,
We'll
if everybody else is comfortable with just a slight tweak of a few words in that language, I think that's fine with me at this point. The one other place that I saw something that I wasn't clear with the language is packet page 71, which is page 22 of the economic development element. The top paragraphs of that language there talks about the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency regional plan. And the two sentences that begin with the word "it," to me, are a little bit confusing. I would imagine, Sam Booth, this might have been a carryover from something in the past, but would you have a clue as to who we're talking to when we talk about "it informed the update of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency"? Or is that just maybe a little bit of a typo or a lifting of language that needed to be modified? I mean, it could refer to the South Shore Vision Plan, maybe.
That's correct, Kirk. This is Sam Booth. I think it's speaking to the South Shore Vision Plan.
Okay. Can we maybe clean that language up? Can we clean that language up a little bit in a couple of places? Maybe which informed the update of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency? I'm not sure how that'll work wording wise. Just seemed to me to be a little awkward.
Yep, we'll get it revised.
That's all that I had in economic development. Are there other planning commissioners that have questions or suggestions on the economic development element? If there are no other questions on that element, Sam Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, if we went back to that earlier item on page 52, the residential building permits, I'm not too sure there's clarity in terms of how that should be fixed, but the one thing that I think that we should be careful of until we get there is that the residential building permits are the leading indicator of economic activity. So if you classify all building permits together and just name all the permits, I think all the permits in their totality don't necessarily, have a great impact on economic activity. I mean, if somebody's replacing their water heater, that's not really a good indicator of economic activity. I just want to make sure that we're not misleading the public in terms of the item being presented as an indicator of economic activity if we list all the building permits. Did that make sense there?
Would your suggestion be then that we direct the staff to modify the entire paragraph and come back to us at the next meeting with something that we could approve that would more precisely reflect
well, I think you could just add the residential building permits there because it is an economic indicator. So it could be in the economic element, but instead of just listing all permits, just list the total residential building permits.
In the second sentence is what you're referring to.
Yeah, just get rid of the 1441 total number and just put in the actual number of residential building permits there instead.
Okay. Yeah, you could perhaps, Tom, have two sentences then and talk about what the numbers were in 19 and what the numbers are in 2020 to date, and just give those figures maybe. Is that satisfactory to everybody that Tom will just update that number in the last sentence there? Okay. Anything else in economic development that people wanted to make suggestions or raise questions on? Okay. If there's nothing else there, then we'll move on to growth management and housing. And again, we will have a motion to adopt the draft language for purposes of discussion. If I could have such motion. I'm sorry.
So moved.
Jennifer, did you want to jump in before we start on the motion?
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer Davidson, Assistant County Manager for the record. I just did want to put something on the record regarding the economic development item before you proceed. And I apologize, my computer was slow to respond when I hit unmute. Just very quickly, I did want to acknowledge public comment that has been received on this item regarding the use of the Valley Vision and language from the Valley Vision in this specific element. That was intentfully done by staff. I do want to disclose that I worked on a significant portion of this element and did purposefully pull verbatim language from the Valley Vision and incorporated it into this document. And I wanted to place an explanation on the record in the minutes for the county commissioners to also read when they do get this document for consideration. I just would like to give a little bit of history on the Valley Vision Plan. The Valley Vision Plan originally came forward in 2013. It was adopted at that time by the County Commission with direction to bring forward a joint resolution with the towns of Gardnerville and Minden to confirm the principles in the plan and to commit to the identification of funds for the implementation of the plan over time. Within the plan, you'll note there's a page that states future steps, where do we go from here type statements with this plan. It was intended not for this plan to not sit on the shelf collecting dust. It was the intent of the County Commission through the adoption of this document to one day in the future adopt the goals and objectives contained in that plan into our master plan, which is why we have incorporated the language here. That joint resolution between the towns of Gardnerville and Minden and Douglas County was adopted in 2014. And the goals and objectives of the Valley Vision Plan were reconfirmed through the adoption of the Plans for Prosperity in 2018. I do note that public comment stated that they were also concerned that the Valley Vision Plan is an outdated document. And that's why I bring up that those goals and objectives were reconfirmed in 2018. I do believe that it is still the intent of the towns to move forward with the Valley Vision, and they have incorporated it into their Plans for Prosperity. And the County Commission has accepted the Plans for Prosperity as well. So that is the reason why that language isn't included, and I appreciate the opportunity to put that on the record.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. We appreciate all your good work on putting that material together. So we're now moving to consideration of the growth management and housing. And I believe, Bryce, I heard you being willing to offer a motion to accept that language for purposes of the discussion. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And Maureen seconds the motion. Is there discussion on adoption of the language for discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the roll. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Hi.
And the chair votes aye. So it's 7-0 for consideration of growth management and housing. So we'll now move on to questions or comments on this element. And Christy, I believe you had your hand up for the comments on the growth management and housing element.
Yeah, I had a statement I wanted to read before we got started on this section.
Go ahead.
We do not need more structures. We need new ideas that will stimulate creativity throughout our community. We need to create tangible housing options that can be implemented so that we can provide our community with a true hope for a better tomorrow. That starts with us, and it needs to start here today. The pandemic that we've been living through in 2020 has created a very flexible job market, in which in turn has created skyrocketing home prices throughout the nation. The work from home life has already significantly changed our local communities. Second homeowners are now living here more often, and some are more permanently relocating, while others who only wish they could live here in the past are now buying up the remaining housing inventory. These purchases are typically above market rates with reduced or no contingencies, and many are all cash offers. This is feasible since their incomes are generated outside of our community. That trend is not going away. Many corporations have also realized that it's 10 to 20 times less expensive to have work from home employees than in-office employees. Businesses are already trending in that direction, and the pandemic was just the catalyst to expedite the shift. Our already depleted workforce housing stock is essentially gone. Rents are higher than the local workforce can reasonably be asked to pay. However, as noted many times in our prior meetings, the market dictates the rent, and the market is dictating those insanely high rental prices. If the locals can't afford to live here on their own, they typically resort to coming up with creative housing solutions so they can stay. Many locals resort to living with roommates or living with multiple families in a home. The least desirable outcome is when a local realizes that they will need to move away from the place they grew up because they simply cannot afford to live here anymore. You might say, tough luck, life is hard, or get an education so you can get a job that makes more money, or don't blow the money you make and save every penny, or go hustle and get a second or a third job so you can get by, let alone get ahead. Too many times it feels like we're telling our neighbors, if you can't afford it here, tough luck. I'm sure there's a community for you elsewhere. What kind of message is that sending? That we only care about the people who can afford to live how we live? To the businesses, maybe it's time for major corporations and companies to step up and pay their employees a living wage. Maybe they should stop bringing in seasonal employees from other countries. Maybe they should do a lot of things differently. To be clear, I'm not opposed to businesses stepping up and paying their employees a living wage. However, the Planning Commission cannot dictate how a company operates. I'm also not opposed to the idea of employees buckling down and putting in the hard work and sacrifice to stay afloat and to hopefully one day thrive. I personally came from a family of 6 people in a very small town in Ohio who figured out how to survive on an income of $38,000 a year. Life was hard, but it wasn't impossible to overcome. While I know it can be done, I also know that life doesn't have to be and shouldn't be that hard. What kind of humans are we if we only look out for ourselves and ignore our neighbors? I'm not for enabling or giving handouts, but I do fully support creating a community that provides opportunities and as a result creates hope. The bottom line is, if we keep building the same products, we're going to keep getting the same results. Today, the American people are redefining what the American dream means. We are taking back control of our lives. Many are opting out of traditional living and focusing more on relationships and experiences, which are the very experiences that we have and offer here in Douglas County. These experiences are a huge part of the reason we all personally live here today. It's not that people are just trying to cut expenses with this new way of living. They are trying to finally live. This pandemic has woken many people up. They now truly realize that life is short and precious, and they want to make the most of the years they have left. If Douglas County really wants to put ourselves on the map by 2022 as one of the best places to live, work, and play, then here are some ways that we can achieve that. We need to update our zoning codes to allow for the development of unique communities in the valley and at the lake. We need to create areas for smart recreating developments that embrace work from home, micro-housing, RV life, outdoorsy nomad culture, conscious and sustainable living, and tiny home communities within Douglas County. If we are creative in how we update our master plan, then we can also achieve a version of our public art goal that Michael Youngblood of the Carson Valley Arts Council Board wrote to us, of improving our urban spaces while promoting the ideas and lifestyles of our community, thus enhancing what life here has to offer. The experiences we have in Douglas County are the exact mechanism we can leverage to create the type of community that we can all thrive in and be proud of, now and for many years to come. Things we can do is update our zoning to allow for alternative housing options such as the micro-housing developments, tiny home developments, shipping container developments. We can allow for RV life communities with smart recreating, conscious tourists, and extended stays. We can create zoning options for self-sustaining off-the-grid developments, utilizing solar, compost toilets, and natural resources to create as close to zero impact developments as possible. Perhaps in one of those developments, we even include an organic pool that's self-sustaining and is an added must-experience attraction to the conscious tourist already coming to Douglas County. I've included in this statement, and it will be out for public record, some links to each of these ideas. While it ultimately will be up to the private sector to create these developments, Douglas County does have the ability to provide them the mechanisms that make them feasible. Today, I willingly choose to be part of the solution instead of perpetuating the problem through rewording and rebranding our existing antiquated frameworks.
Thank you, Christy. Very thoughtful comments. We appreciate those. Other members of the Planning Commission with comments or questions or suggestions on the growth management and housing element? Maureen.
I have brought this up before, and I want to bring it up again. On page 80 and 81 of our packet under growth management and housing, we have exceptions for affordable housing, and it talks about deed restricted housing being exempted from the growth management ordinance. And my broken record says a unit is a unit is a unit. They all have impact on infrastructure and quality of life, so they all need to be counted. And then the part in paragraph underneath, and that's on under the photo on page 81, about deed restrictions and incomes up to 110% of median income. We have a very high standard of living here, and median income is skewed. When we're talking $82,000 a year as medium, as 110% of median income, we're pricing at least 50% of the people we need out of the market. So that needs to be changed, and I'm sure that is something that can come up when we redo the zoning code. But I do believe deed restricted housing is an option, is an affordable option, and we need to take more care and figure out a way that tracking it as to when they are sold or when they are rented results in the people who qualify living there and not investment housing for people outside the area. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll let it go at that. And I want to hear comments from others if they have them.
Thank you, Maureen. Anybody else care to jump in on comments that Maureen has made? I just have one quick question to follow on, Maureen, and I'm not sure, Sam Booth, if you know this or not, but when we talk about the county's median income, that's the entire county. So that includes Tahoe Township as well as the valley, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Sam Booth. I don't know directly what the wording is within our code, but yes, the county median income would include Tahoe.
So I think Maureen makes a good point. We have to be really careful that numbers don't get skewed when we talk about any of the economic statistics in the county, whether we talk about housing prices or median income or lots of things. And we do have a good percentage of the people who are in the workforce, and I think Christy made some good points on that. So Tahoe is not exempt from housing needs and workforce housing needs. But I think, Maureen, you make a good point that we got to be very careful when we look at some of the numbers sometimes. Any other thoughts on what Maureen was commenting on, or do people want to take off on other sections of the growth management and housing? Bryce, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a comment regarding TDRs. I think that we need to take a hard look at the TDR program, especially given that it doesn't appear that question number 3 will pass, and therefore there will not be a vehicle in which to preserve open space. And so I would just ask that we continue to look at that the county commission look at that, and that we find ways to preserve open space going forward, or else we're going to lose the beauty for which we all appreciate and respect each day.
Thank you, Bryce. I share your thoughts on that. That's something that we need to have on our plate for the coming year. Anybody else with comments, questions, suggestions on growth management and housing? Mark, go ahead.
Yes, so I think that we should have some action items here, and I think one of the action items should be incorporate whatever changes we make to the development code requiring the mandatory use of TDRs when you file the final map. And then I'd like to have a discussion basically on when a development comes up and is asking for an extension, how much are the fees that we are charging on the granting of the extension? And can we also look into whether or not we can eliminate any of the grandfathered building units that were allocated to this exemption? I'm sorry, allocated to this development. So these would be those units that were previously approved 10 years ago or something, that they may have not built anything. They got a exemption from the growth management element because they were existing at the time that this was passed. But if they come back for a extension, at that time, can we look at eliminating the grandfathering so they go through the normal process of acquiring a building permit just through the regular process that anybody with a new house would go through?
Okay, Mark, a couple of tough questions. I'm not sure if Sam Booth or Sam Taylor wants to take a stab at giving some explanations of what could be done or can be done under existing code, because those are areas that I think Mark's raising a very valid point, and I think Maureen has made this in various meetings in the past as well. So Sam Booth, Sam Taylor, either one of you want to take a crack at responding to Mark?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Sam Booth, Planning Manager for the record. Mark, what I can tell you is at least describe the process that we have in community development for extensions, which I think first starts with the approval of a subdivision or potentially a parcel map, which would be 4 lots or less. Those approvals of the tentative map, just the process that's approved by the commissioners and the planning commission. NRS states that a subdivision subdivision map expires 4 years after tentative map approval, if a final map is not recorded by then. For a parcel map, those smaller ones, 4 lots or less, I believe it's just 1 year. Excuse me, it may be 2 for the recording there. But those are standards that are set out in NRS, and our code duplicates or just matches the NRS standard for recording timelines for those. Now, there are extensions that can be granted, and I believe our code outlines how an extension can be granted. But typically, I believe it's just a 1-year extension, and the applicant has to apply for that. The Director of Community Development and, of course, staff will review that, and there's findings that they have to meet for that extension. I think there's a description in the code about what constitutes the approval of an extension. Those are just on a 1-year basis at a time, typically. And so I think, hearing your question, you also talked about some of the vested projects, some of those that were approved in years prior. And my guess is that some of those that have been on the books for 20 years or 30 years, those type of things, those are maybe more what you're thinking about there, because for the most part, the newer subdivisions, they have 4-year or 1 or 2 year recording deadlines. Another difference is with a plan development, in that a plan development is allowed to, as per one of the, I suppose, perks of applying for a plan development, if you're a developer, is that you are allowed to set your own development schedule and phases and recording timelines for each of those phases. And some recently, we've had a few plan developments that we've brought forward. You'll notice in our staff reports, we'll call out what that phasing plan is that the developer has requested. That's the way for that developer to get around NRS's 4-year timeline for recording the map. So they may set that phase 1 has to be recorded within 4 years in accordance with NRS. Then phase 2 may be another 4 after that. So if you divide that development up by 10 phases, it may be 40 years. My point to you there is that the Planning Commission has a purview to review that phasing schedule in your review of the development, and as of course, as well as the county commissioners. And so just look for that in the staff report or in the applicant's application as projects come forward. in the future, and to ask those questions of the developer and of staff as well. I defer to Sam Taylor on the vested projects and some of those, but the one thing I think I would caution there is that many of those projects are subject to outside litigation, development agreements, settlement agreements, other types of things that set standards different than NRS or county code, and essentially can tie staff and the planning commission or county commissioner's hands on the timelines there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam Taylor, would you like to go ahead and amplify?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Taylor again for Douglas County DA's office, for the record. I would concur with a lot of what Sam said, that, basically there are specific timelines set out in the code. There's timelines for extensions. There's also the point that he made relative to PDs, plan developments. The schedule is set forth in the ordinance approving the plan development. So unless you amend the ordinance, they can basically develop in accordance with that schedule. Obviously, if they're not doing the public facilities or other requirements or conditions necessary to sustain that phasing that they have proposed, then there might be something to that. But, normally, I mean, developers are pretty good about getting that stuff in on time. We've had a couple where, they just kind of barely squeaked in and, met the timelines. But overall, you're kind of stuck with it. Same thing is true with development agreements. For example, we have one development agreement with a 30-year timeline. So there's nothing really the county staff can do about that. Nothing really that the county can do about it now. I mean, once the development agreement is approved, unless we breach the agreement, we're kind of stuck with it. So that's about it.
Thank you, Sam. Mark, did that come close to answering some of your questions, or did you want to follow up? Mark, I think you might be muted now.
It certainly answered a lot of questions, but what I'm mostly concerned about now is those that were vested, those that Sam Taylor was talking about, that when the growth management thing was being litigated and brought forward, those people who were on the books were vested. And if they come in for a extension at that time, can we remove their vesting? And I'm sure that that's on a case-by-case basis. If Sam Taylor said that, a lot of these were done by agreements and litigation, but I think it's something that I guess does not need to be in the master plan, but it's something I hope that we as planning commissioners and staff take a look at should one of those come forward.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, one of the things that could possibly be added is, an action item to examine such issues and determine the viability of existing, developments which have been grandfathered in. That's a possibility if you wanted to add that.
I think that's a very good point, Sam Taylor. And I think, Mark, maybe that's something that you want to give some thought to, because at our next meeting, we'll be able to go back into the goals, policies, and actions and either modify or add items that we've found need to be in the document when we move forward. And I think I would support that because you make a very valid point. Maureen, do you have something that you wanted to add on what Mark was following up on?
Yes, I fully support Mark's idea to get these things off the list by removing their ability to be grandfathered if they've been floating around for a while. But correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, Tom, you've been keeping a list of things that we need to amend in the code.
Yeah, so, I've got a laundry list. It's Tom Belair, a very multiple page laundry list of things to amend in the code.
Okay, so this is just one more.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Mark, I wanted to circle back to you if there's anything else on this one that you wanted to follow up on.
No, thank you.
Okay. Other members of the Planning Commission, Sam Taylor, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to urge caution. I mean, for example, amending the code doesn't necessarily undo the existing grandfathering. So we just need to be cautious whenever we're engaging in that process.
Yes, very good point, Sam. Anybody else on the Planning Commission? Dave Acola, do you have comments, questions, or suggestions on the growth management and housing element?
Not on that section, no.
Okay. I have a couple that I wanted to just make a quick point on and maybe discuss in greater detail. And I can jump in on some of them, and then other members may have comments or questions on the items I'm raising. One quick one, Sam Booth, if you could flip to packet page 78, which is page 4 of the element on the top. We have a figure G2 regional housing inventory. I think maybe you were still working on a figure on that one and just didn't plug it into the document. Is that correct? Something got left out there. We were missing a figure. Tom Delaire.
Yeah, that's correct. Wood Rogers is gathering that information.
Okay.
And is trying to get that image. So the image for this will come up on the final version.
Okay.
In addition to that, the figure G4, we have an updated image, and I think it looks a lot better than the one that's provided it's on the following page.
Great. Well, everybody can work their magic on all the figures as we move forward if there's something updated or isn't plugged in. The one I'd like to have a little bit of discussion on is on packet page 87. And this is figure G5, the building permits by structure type. I think this goes back to a little bit of what I was raising in the previous element. And I think this figure is very important when you total up the numbers and you look at recent maybe 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 data. We see a pretty clear picture that we're not building new houses in excessive numbers, and then that goes into the discussion in the paragraph above on growth management. What I would like to have, and Tom, you and I talked about this a little bit, is a little more detailed information. And I think the chart that you showed me that was previously submitted to the Board of County Commissioners that has Douglas County single-family development building permits by month and by year. So what I would like you to do is put that in as a new figure. And I think, Sam Taylor, it's probably best on something like this that we have a formal motion so that we can have exact direction to the staff and get the documents included. I'd be happy to yield to my colleagues if they have other things that they want in this particular portion of the discussion. But what I would be suggesting is that we ask staff to add a new figure and an accompanying explanation that would detail the number of single-family building permits issued by month for the last 4 years. And I think that'll give us a more accurate picture. We've talked about this in various meetings in the past. So we'll just know month by month, okay, are our numbers in October going way beyond what we've ever built or had for building permits in the past 3 years, or is it about in line? So I thought this would be a good thing to have in the master plan for illustration of what the monthly numbers look like for the last 4 years. Any discussion or thoughts on this, Sam Booth?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just as I'm making notes here on the document, just want to clarify, do you want to revise figure G5 or you want to add an additional figure?
No, I like the way G5 is laid out right now because that gives you a year by year for the different categories. But if we can break down the single family and do that month by month for the last 4 years, the information that was presented to the Board of County Commissioners is a very clear bar graph. If you can put some accompanying numbers down there so you don't have to estimate the totals, but they're really basically numbers between 35 and 6 or so, which is the actual permits that get issued per month. And I think it gives us good reflection of what's going on recently, which is pretty relevant to the discussion we're having in the document. Other planning commission members want to chime in on this? If not, I'd just go ahead and make a motion. I would move to direct staff as a part of the section on growth management to add a new figure and an accompanying explanation detailing the number of single-family building permits issued by month for the last 4 years. And I would offer that as a motion and look for a second.
A second.
Christie seconds the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, I'll call the roll on approval of my motion to add a new figure and an accompanying explanation on growth on single-family building permits. Christie?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this is 7 votes, 0 to add that direction to staff. I've got a few more, and I'll just move forward until somebody wants to jump in on another topic. On page 89, we talk about the residential allocations by category in table G1. And then, as Mark was talking about, we have the section on TDRs and receiving area. I think in past master plans or other documents I've reviewed, Sam Booth, if you can help me out, we've had a fair amount of discussion on the process for carryovers of the building allocations and then the banking and borrowing system. And I'm just wondering if that's something that could be inserted here to give a little bit more of a picture of what we have, because I think when you look at it right now, it doesn't give a complete picture of what we've got for potential building.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Sam Booth. I think this table here shows you the breakdown, the available allocations vested, as you see it on the screen. Table we use for our internal tracking of these allocations does show several additional columns, and some of which includes what we call the individual allocation pool and the project allocation pool. And those are the carryovers. Basically, if there's remaining allocations at the end of the year, those are added to the pool. And so over time, because we haven't used the available allocations in any year yet since the growth management ordinance was instituted, those have stacked up in the individual pool and in the project pool. So you can, we cut that out because the full table just doesn't fit in the plan here. I can add some information underneath the table describing that process. And essentially, if you look at the table, what happens is, let's see if we show remaining allocations vested. Yeah, what we don't do in this table is the calculation of how many building permits or how many allocations were used in each year, and then how many were rolled over from that. I know Tom and I have presented that information to the Planning Commission, I think maybe earlier this year even, and as well as to the county commissioners. And if anybody wants to see that full table, we can do that. But I could just include a note if that would work for you underneath the table here describing that process.
Yes, Sam, that's exactly what I was looking for. I think the simplified chart that you have for G1 is a good one. But I think one paragraph of additional language talking about the individual pools and the carryovers might be useful just to get a full picture. So other members want to weigh in on this topic. I don't want to make it more complicated than it already is, but I think in this case, we don't want to ignore something that's a valid part of what we're looking at. Maureen.
Yeah, just a comment. Since I've been on the Planning Commission the last couple of years, and my personal thoughts before then, is the general feeling out in the community is we got to get rid of that pool. And I've been told that someone potentially could come in tomorrow and if they had all their ducks lined up, they could request that $1,700 pool or 1,700 housing pool. So whatever it takes, I'm assuming it's a revision of the growth management ordinance, which goes to the Board of Commissioners for approval, but we have to do what we can to remove that rollover.
Thank you, Maureen. I think you're right on both of your observations. Sam, did you have something you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. This is Sam Booth for the record. Kirk and Maureen. And I can try my best for Tom and I to describe that in this area here in the language we're going to add. But there's two separate pools that the growth management allocation system breaks down. So there's an individual pool, which are basically the lots that are approved that weren't approved through the subdivision process. Many of those are lots that were in Johnson Lane, a lot of the 1 acre lots that were approved prior to the growth management ordinance, and parcel maps. So just 3 lots, 4 lots or less. Those can be just need an individual allocation. And then the ordinance describes that a project allocation is anything that's approved in a plan development or a subdivision. So there are separate pools, and that number is about 1,700. I believe it's about 600 in the project pool. And so traditionally what we're thinking of, as you're saying, if someone's ducks are in a row to be able to come pull that many building permits at one time, most likely that's a large scale developer, and it's one of these large scale subdivisions or plan developments. And so they can only pull an allocation from the project pool. So they would only be able to pull potentially that 600 or so allocations that are available for projects. They would not be able to go to the individual pool to pull those allocations. So there is a separated area there. So we hear all the time that there's 1,700 available. Actually, there's only 600 for projects. Now, in the individual pool, usually those are more custom homes. If you were to go buy a 1 acre, 5 acre lot in the Johnson Lane area or East Valley and build a home yourself, just hiring a contractor to do that, your allocation would come from the individual pool. So while there are 1,100 or 1,200 or so of those in that pool, the reason there's so many is because the ordinance breaks down that 70% of the allocations go to that individual pool and only 30% go to the project pool. And on a yearly basis, we don't have, you can imagine, we don't have nearly as many people come in on an individual basis to get an allocation for, a custom home build on a 1 acre or 5 acre lot. So therefore, that there's more allocations that roll over in that pool year after year. And that's why it's as high as, 1,100, 1,200. The project pool, again, we haven't used all of those in any year, but it's only 30% of the total available allocations for subdivisions. So just want to clarify that we hear that there's, and there are quite a few that are in the pools there, but there is a difference between that individual pool and the project pool.
I appreciate that, Sam, but if, with the 900 or so votes that question 3 is trailing right now, and the amount of money coming over the mountain, we're going to see a lot more individuals pulling permits to build mansions along the edges of the floodplain, and ranchers that are going to be splitting up their ranches in order to get some money. And I still think, regardless of what happens, we need to get rid of those pools. I just don't think it works. If we don't use them in the year, they're gone. And then we start fresh the following year. Otherwise, we're going to build out, probably not in our lifetimes, but this valley is going to be destroyed, and it's just going to be one more California Valley or one more washout. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. And thank you, Sam, for that explanation. That's very, very helpful. I'm prepared to go ahead and just make a motion on this so we get it all on the record for how Sam is going to add to this report, unless there's other comments. What I would suggest, Sam, and if you want to tweak this a little bit, but I would move to direct staff as a part of the growth management ordinance subsection to add language describing the process for carryovers of building allocations in the banking and borrowing system. So that would be my motion, and I would look for a second of that motion.
So moved.
Bryce seconds the motion. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, then I will call for a vote. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this is 7 votes to 0 to have the staff work on an additional paragraph or two for that subsection. I have 2 more places where I want to have some discussion and direction on staff changes, but I'd be happy to yield to anybody else if they wanted to jump in. So I'm not monopolizing the topic here. If not, I can go forward. Sam, on tables G4 and G5. This is packet pages 91 and 92. These are really good documents. You've done an excellent job. We've looked at these in various forms before. Sometimes they're printed horizontally and contain the information. And then we've had, at times, a lot of the individual numbers month by month on building permits issued and remaining. But I think this really gets it to the crux of what many of us have been talking about, and what we hear a lot in the public discussion about, oh, there's 9,000 houses out there could be built, or 7,000 or 8,000 or 5,000. We get numbers all the time. But I think you've done an excellent job on this. But I just have a couple of questions and suggestions, Tom or Sam Booth. When we look at the chart on the table on the top of page 91, the first thing it says on the grade area, it says Valley total vested units approved remaining, and then it lists a figure of 5,552. I think we're kind of muddying how we've described some of these because I think that's not what's remaining. If you look down at the bottom of the first column on number of units approved, that's the total number that have been approved in total. Then if you jump 2 lines down, you've got the accurate information, I think, where it says vested lots remaining 2,542, and that's the bottom number in the last column to the right. And then you've got other lots remaining 1,794, and that's where you get the total that jumps over on the next page on the projects list, the bottom column in the right for the valley, 1,794. So when you add those 2 numbers together, you get a total of 4,336. So what I would like to do is make some suggestions on how you modify this so that we have a little more clearer picture on both of these 2 tables. Then my other suggestion to call people's attention to is when we get down to the vested list, we list the community area, the project name, and then we go over to the second to the last column, lots built out through 2019. And I think since we're using a figure in the final column of lots remaining, if we can have the lots built out correspond to the same time period, so those 2 numbers would be comparable, I think that would make this a little better table. And then the only thing, again, down at the bottom, the second to last line, we have total vested monthly permits. And again, we might have transposed the language from somewhere else. I don't think that's a monthly permits. That's a total vested permits. It's not necessarily monthly on the last column over there. So Tom, I'm not sure if you want to react to the suggestions I have, but I think that kind of information would really make these tables very, very useful. So did I mischaracterize anything, Tom, or misinterpret what you were doing on the language in these two tables?
Tom Delaire for the record. Thank you, Kirk, and I appreciate all the input on this. It's something that we've tried to track this stuff a lot better internally, and then also with our permitting software, and we're working on that. And so getting this kind of information on how people interpret it is good. I was mainly focused on the numbers, but like you said, those lots built out through 2019. I should have updated that to 10/31/2020. So those are accurate. What I did, and I think if you recall, in June you had a month-to-month projection of how many houses are being used up or built on these projects, on these lists. And so staff is tracking that on a monthly basis, and then at the end of the year we roll it to the gray column from the yellow column. So we have been trying to keep that that data up to date. And then also this particular one, I had to take that form and modify it quite a bit in order to put it in a similar format to reflect how everything's been reported to date in the master plan, which is by community area, not by project. And so so that's why the monthly thing is still on the bottom. I missed that text, so I appreciate you guys looking at that. I also noticed I missed a color change on the table as well, and so we'll clean it up. We'll get it reinserted for the next round, and I appreciate the input.
Thank you, Tom. As I said, I think this is excellent information. You've done a great job. We're starting to get a clearer picture of where we're going at, and I won't go into all the details about why even some of the numbers are pretty inflated based on the fact that some of the projects are so old, as Maureen has pointed out numerous times. So, but I want to be accurate on the numbers. So unless there's other discussion, I would just go ahead and make a motion so we have it on the table of what staff needs to do in this area. I would move to direct staff in tables G4 and G5 to update and clarify the descriptions of housing approved and remaining.
Second.
Thank you, Maureen, for the second. Is there any further discussion of this motion or these two tables? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Christy?
Aye.
Brian? Or Bryce?
Aye.
Bryce, we got you. I jumped ahead. So Bryce?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
You only get to vote once, though.
Thank you.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this vote is 7 votes to 0 for direction to staff in that in those two tables. And then I have one last one, but again, I'd be happy to defer to anybody else if they wanted to jump in with other thoughts here. On page 97, Sam. This is the text that talks about the build-out analysis. And I think in our discussions, we have done some updating so that the table on page 97, table G6, is a accurate and up-to-date table. But I think we're still missing an update on the numbers on the text under residential build-out analysis. So Tom or Sam Booth, is that something that we need to go back in just that area, or are there other areas where we need to update those numbers?
Yes, Kirk, this is Sam Booth for the record. It looks like you're correct, and I'm just trying to make the note on this paragraph here that we just need to make the acreage and dwelling unit numbers in this paragraph, in this discussion here, match the table we have below it. And I think that may be the same case for this text just below the table discussing what's above. So I can make a note to do that. Of course, we want those numbers here to match the description we have.
Thank you very much, Sam. I would go ahead and make the motion then, so we have this on the record. And I would move that we would direct staff to update the text on page 23 and 24, starting with the residential build-out analysis subsection and relating to future built-out housing.
Second.
And thank you, Maureen, for the second. Tom, did you have something that you wanted to add to what we're doing here?
No, maybe afterwards and get some direction on some of these numbers, but
okay.
Yeah, I'll let you guys finish voting first and then.
Okay. Is there further discussion from the Planning Commission members on the direction to staff to update those numbers and text? If not, I'll call the roll. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this is 7 votes to 0 to make that modification. I think, again, staff has done a great job in putting all this material together. When you look at this compared to what was in the previous versions of the master plan, it's just where we want to be. It's slimmed down, it's good information, it's accurate information, and I think we've achieved a great deal in all the work that everyone has done. Are there other questions, suggestions, directions on the growth management and housing? If not, then we'll move forward to public safety. And again, we would have a motion to adopt the public safety draft as presented for purposes of discussion and possible modification.
So moved.
Bryce, thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Christy seconds the motion. Is there discussion on adoption of the draft language? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Christy?
Aye.
Bryce?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we now have before us the public safety text with the accompanying tables and information. Are there questions from the Planning Commission on the document before us?
I only have a comment.
Go ahead, Maureen.
I really, really like and appreciate the thoroughness of the natural hazard section. It's very well done. The maps are great. Explanations are wonderful. They take into account everything. Well done.
Thank you, Maureen. Any other thoughts or questions on the public safety element? I think Tom Dallaire or Sam Booth add on if you want to make other comments, but we have sent this out to the appropriate people in public safety, and I think they've made some comments back, so we may have some possible modifications to the goals and policies and action items that we've previously approved. And we'll bring those forward at the next meeting of the Planning Commission. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, thank you, Kirk. Tom Dallaire for the record. That is correct. We have reached out. Todd Carlini has provided some comments. I'm working with Eric Gavon up at Tahoe Fire. They provided us in 2018 when we thought we were starting the text update, a large update, and we incorporated most of their text, but I wanted them to review that as well. And then Todd has some specific verbiage on the policies that you guys have already approved, with just adding a few words here or there within the policies that we'll present at the next round. We didn't want to muddle the waters with the way the process has been going so far with the goals, policies, and actions, and then having some modifications midstream. So we'll add that language to the document and highlight it so it can be noticed on what's modified.
Great. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate your efforts in reaching out to all the appropriate staff. And again, we appreciate the work of all the appropriate staff and departments throughout the county. This is a participatory document, and they're the people who have the most sophisticated level of information and knowledge about what needs to be done and what we may have made a minor error on or need to have some clarification. So we'll be bringing those forward at the November 17th meeting. And I want to remind members of the Planning Commission as well that if you have additional thoughts on goals, policies, and actions, if there was an oversight, if there was something that we approved initially by consent, we will have an opportunity to raise any of those at the November 17th meeting. It will be a simple process of reconsidering our previous approval of something and then modifying anything that needs to be modified. And again, I'd remind everyone that any of the changes or actions that we would take at the November 17th meeting, including on individual items and on the elements in total and on the entire master plan, would need to be approved by 5-2 vote. So all of our votes moving forward on individual items, on elements, and on the final passage of the document would be a 5-2 for approval. So having said that, if there's no other items on the remaining element public safety, we will finish that. And I'll move towards closing public comment, unless there's any other comments or questions from members of the Planning Commission. Okay. At this time, public comment will be taking on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Planning Commission. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person who has left a voice message on Douglas County's public comment phone line, 775-783-6088. The voice messages will be played to the public and Planning Commission in the order they were recorded. No more than one voice message public comment per person will be played to the Planning Commission and public. We are now at 2:33 p.m. So Colleen, do you have public comment at this point?
Not yet.
Okay. Again, we'll wait for at least 5 minutes for additional public comment. I would remind members of the public and members of the Planning Commission, if you do have supplemental materials, they can be submitted at any point today, and they will be included in the supplemental materials that we posted on the county website. So those will be also sent out to Planning Commission members within 24 hours after today's meeting. And I would remind members of the public, comments are always welcome on email, and that email is planning@douglasnv.us. And again, please put your name, the topic that you're commenting on, and your position on the item when you're submitting public comments. But those are welcome at any time for this particular meeting. And again, that same email is always open for public comments that would be submitted before our meeting on November 17th. So once again, on November 17th, we'll take up all of the elements. We will also have the implementation element. And if people have looked at past versions of that, that's essentially a matrix that the county staff develops on our action items, giving them the priority that they feel can best meet the needs of the action item. So we'll be looking at that document for the first time, but that's a document that really is based on internal staff priorities. But we do have an opportunity to comment and make modifications to the implementation document. I would also note that there's a tribal element that will be added at a later date. We will have a placeholder in the master plan for the tribal element, but staff has reached out and continues to reach out for a comment, and we will have that linked in the document for whenever the tribe puts together the tribal element, which will be part of the master plan. Other public comments have come in, Colleen, or not?
Not yet.
Okay. Other comments from members of the Planning Commission? I do want to thank everybody for their excellent participation over the past 4 meetings. We only have 1 to go. I think we're on the home stretch, but everybody in the Planning Commission has done an excellent job in preparing and making worthwhile contributions. I think we have a very good document. Hopefully the Board of County Commissioners will feel likewise, but that's always subject to their wisdom. And I do want to thank the staff all the way from the county manager's office to all of the relevant departments have done an excellent job. So we appreciate their work. We appreciate the work of Wood Rogers and the consultant in getting us to the place where we're at now. So, Colleen, any public comment has come in?
I do have one.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Jim Slade. Chat was disabled for the entire live stream on the YouTube. I would ask Chairman Walder if that was his decision or that of the county manager. And I would hope you would answer that question prior to the adjournment of this meeting. The public uses the chat feature to participate in their own way with the meeting. Disabling the chat function is certainly contrary to transparency and public input. It's bad enough that you're unwilling to have in-person meetings. The town of Minden's been having in-person meetings for several months, and the county scheduled an in-person flood awareness meeting for next week. So why does the Planning Commission still have only virtual meetings? Again, is that your decision, Chairman Walder, or that of the county manager? The effect, perhaps the desired effect of not having in-person meetings is to limit public comment. That, of course, would be contrary to the intent of the open meeting law. Lots remaining in tables G4 and G5 total 4336, but that, of course, leaves out all of the 2,500 homes in the Park Ranch development approved last year. The first individual development of 190 homes is likely to be approved as early as next week. It's misleading to leave those 2,500 homes out of the calculation. By adding in those, you get to more than 6,800 homes available, which is not far from the 7,000 figure that myself and others have used. Putting this residential building analysis in the master plan is not trimming down the master plan, because the residential building permit has never been in the master plan before, and it doesn't belong in this master plan. The challenge with the growth management section is to provide for sustainable growth that meets our county needs without exceeding our fiscal and natural resources, especially water, and our infrastructure, as well as striving to retain our rural character, open space, and quality of life. I would hope that you would always take those considerations into account.
I have a second one.
Okay, Colleen, go ahead.
Ellie Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R. I'd like to thank Ms. Davison for the clarification of the Valley Vision usage and Plan for Prosperity 2018 linkage. With that said, the intent of my comment is clarifying that the 2011 current master plan goals and policies were left on the cutting room floor for a 2016 version most didn't embrace and still has invaluable information that should have been brought forward, much like adopting and extracting language from the 2013 Valley Vision. I agree with Maureen. A unit is a unit is a unit, and all have impacts that must be accounted for. I also agree with subsidizing over 100% of median income needs to be revisited and clarification, and a good statistic would be Valley only, Tahoe only median income for reference. I agree with Mark on exemption comments, also vested projects on a case-by-case basis and clarification of fees for extension. Furthermore, I suggest a new review process. A project over 5 years old should be provided and a new code generated to have developers come before commissioners to update why their projects have not been commenced. Also, findings for extension requests should be presented to the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners as they come up for review to allow a robust discussion. update development code and ordinance for plan development and eliminate loopholes. I agree with Sam Taylor that in addition of an action item, as he stated, should be developed. Just want to point out the disparity of the planning commissioners that can go on and on and on while we are restricted to 3 minutes at closing to address new information presented by the commissioners, as we were not privy to that information, and a lengthy written comment in response is not permissible. This is violating the intent of open meeting law by limiting public comment.
That's the last one so far.
Thank you, Colleen. I will go ahead and address some of the comments that were made in public comment. First, as far as the chat feature on YouTube, I have nothing to do with the chat feature on YouTube. I did not direct anybody to disable the chat feature on YouTube. I did not consult with the county manager's office and hear any conversations about disabling the chat function. I can only imagine that perhaps that was a YouTube situation. I will certainly look into that, but it's not my intention or anyone else's intention to limit any of the features that might be available on YouTube for public comment. Secondly, in regard to public meetings, it's been my decision in consultation with the county manager's office, as I responded to Bryce, I think 3 or 4 meetings ago, in the interest of public safety, that we do have meetings virtually. I find it difficult that we have to be constricted to this, but I do think public safety is of the utmost importance, and that's my decision. I would take great exception to the fact that we limit public comment. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the beast that we're dealing with, we've made a decision to have public comment at the beginning and at the end, and not on individual action items. But I do not feel that public comment has been limited in any way, shape, or form. We have public comment at each of the meetings. We have written public comment that's be allowed to be submitted before the meetings and after the meetings and in interim periods. This is our 4th meeting on the master plan. We will have a 5th meeting next week. So public comment is not limited to 3 minutes just at the closing. You can make public comment today, you can make public comment tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. There's no limitation, and no one is being cut off or restricted from making their comments on the record. We do read all those. I read them before the meetings, I read them after the meetings, and I read them at the Board of County Commission meetings. So I do not think public comment has been restricted. Planning commissioners obviously have a right and a role to make comment at any point during the meetings, but we don't treat the public comment from individuals any less seriously than we treat the public comment made by members of the planning commission. So that's my response to individuals who have commented this afternoon. So if there are no other public comments, Colleen, or members of the planning commission that want to add thoughts, then we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and our next meeting will be on November 17th. Thank you very much.